Momentum looks active, but distance is not extending. The weekly structure remains inside the same monthly boundary. Price moves up, then returns. The weekly anchor is defined by the first week of the month. Just like sessions on lower timeframes, higher timeframes also have anchor points. On the weekly chart, the first week of each month acts as the anchor. This is important. Structure begins from these anchor points, not from random candles. Now observe the pattern. The April 1st week forms inside the March 1st week box. The March 1st week forms inside the February 1st week box. This is repeated containment. Each new weekly anchor forms inside prior structure. No new space is created. This is compression. Compression means structure is tightening. There is less room for price to move. Even if volatility appears active, distance remains limited. Now look at the larger layer. The February, March, and April weekly anchors all form below the January monthly anchor box. This is important. Structure has not relocated above that level. Everything is happening underneath it. This is containment. Containment means price is trapped inside a larger structure. Now the behavior becomes clear. Price moves within the range defined by two descending pressure lines. This creates a channel. Movement appears directional, but it is still bounded. Price moves upward, then reacts. Price moves downward, then reacts again. This is rotation. Rotation means price moves between boundaries without leaving the structure. Now observe how distance behaves. Each upward move travels less distance before reacting. Each downward move also slows earlier. This is compression building. Space becomes smaller. This creates friction. Moves start strong, but slow earlier. Pullbacks become deeper. Continuation stalls sooner. This is behavioral friction. Now the sequence continues. The weekly anchor forms inside prior structure. From this location, distance opens toward the next boundary. Price reaches that boundary. Reaction appears. It does not hold outside. It returns. This sequence repeats. Now focus on the monthly interaction. The April monthly candle is beginning to test the upper boundary of the March anchor box. This looks like expansion, but structure has not changed yet, because holding has not formed. Holding means staying outside a level long enough to establish a new position. Without holding, movement remains interaction. Now the structure becomes more sensitive. Failure frequency increases. Each attempt to move higher fails earlier. Distance expectation compresses. Tolerance becomes narrower. There is less room for continuation. Now the key insight. Even if the chart removes older monthly anchors, structure still respects them. If you go back to earlier data, you will see that the current structure aligns with prior anchor levels. This is not coincidence. This is structural memory. Higher time frame memory behaves the same way as session memory. It defines where new structure forms. Now the environment tightens further. If weekly anchors continue forming inside this same monthly range, distance remains limited. If price begins to hold above the January monthly anchor box, tolerance must expand. Execution conditions remain in transition. Price continues to fluctuate, but distance does not expand. The monthly structure remains in compression. Now shift focus to the monthly chart. March closes as a compressed bearish candle. It is fully contained within the February range. This is important. The March candle does not create new structure. It is absorbed. This is compression at the monthly level. Compression here means the range becomes tighter, and volatility is restricted inside that range. Now observe the shape. The March candle has a long upper wick. This shows rejection. Rejection means price attempted to move higher, but could not stay there. It was pushed back inside. Now April begins. Price immediately moves upward to test that same upper wick area. This looks like continuation, but it is still interaction, because price has not established position above it. Now observe the lower boundary. The February, March, and April monthly lows all align with prior structural levels. These levels come from earlier anchor zones. The 2021 January structure, the 2022 January structure, the 2024 January structure. These are not random levels. They are historical anchor points. Price continues to react around them. This is structural memory across years. Now the behavior becomes clearer. Price is not freely moving. It is negotiating between these boundaries. Each move upward meets resistance. Each move downward finds support. This creates rotation. Rotation at the monthly level. Now observe compression again. The range between these boundaries is tightening. Each monthly candle travels less distance than before. This is compression building. Compression reduces distance. It increases interaction. Interaction increases failure. Failure increases friction. This is the cycle. Now the key structural condition. For structure to shift into a new phase, price must test the lower boundary of the 2026 anchor box. This has not happened yet. Without that test, structure remains incomplete. Now observe the behavior. Price attempts to move upward, but fails to hold. Returns into range. This repeats. Failure frequency increases. Moves become shorter. Reaction becomes faster. This is friction increasing. Now execution conditions shift. Distance expectation compresses further. Tolerance becomes narrower. Holding pressure increases. Now connect this to the weekly. Weekly structure is inside this monthly compression. This is why weekly movement cannot extend. Higher time frame defines boundary. Lower time frame defines behavior. Weekly cannot escape monthly containment. Now the conditional layer. If monthly compression continues, weekly distance remains limited. If price begins to hold above the upper wick of March, tolerance must expand. Environment is still processing. Price continues to move, but structure does not shift. The daily behavior remains inside weekly containment. Now move to the daily chart. The April daily anchor forms around the midpoint of the March structure. This is not a new location. It is inherited. The daily anchor forms inside prior monthly and weekly interaction. From this position, distance opens upward. Price moves toward the upper boundary of the March range. It reaches that level. Reaction appears. Then price continues. It attempts to move toward the February lower boundary. This is a retest. But again, holding does not form. This is repeated interaction. Now observe the behavior. Price moves upward, but slows earlier. Pullbacks deepen. Continuation stalls. This is friction at the daily level. Now compression becomes visible. Each move reaches boundaries faster. Distance contracts. This is compression. Compression here reflects the same structure as weekly and monthly. This is alignment. All time frames show the same condition. Containment. Now observe rotation. Price moves between the March upper boundary and the February lower boundary, and returns again. This is rotation inside structure. Now relocation attempts appear. Price moves quickly across levels, but does not stay there. This is relocation without persistence. Without persistence, relocation fails. The move returns into structure. Now the environment tightens. Failure frequency increases. Reaction becomes faster. Tolerance becomes narrow. Distance expectation compresses further. Now the key layer. Daily structure is not independent. It reflects weekly. Weekly reflects monthly. Higher time frame defines boundary. Lower time frame expresses behavior. This is hierarchy. Now observe the repetition. The anchor forms. Distance opens. Boundary is reached. Reaction appears. It fails to hold. It returns. The same sequence repeats. This is structure in motion. Now the condition becomes clear. If daily continues forming inside this weekly and monthly containment, distance remains limited. If price begins to establish position outside these overlapping boundaries, tolerance must expand. Execution conditions remain in transition.